So Jeff is from Wayfair, and as all of you guys know, we got a lot. Wayfair has really been hitting the market strong. One of the largest retailers for furniture online, dealing with huge scaling and growth. So we really felt it was really interesting for Jeff to be able to come in and talk about, in the enterprise level, how do you foster, encourage, and embrace collaboration across functions. So that's what his discussion is going to be about. So Jeff, really looking forward to it. Excited to hear you speak. Here he is.
Hi, everybody. How do I work the mouse?
Oh yeah, James?
What's on? Sorry. That's all right. So thanks for accepting my talk. I kind of wanted to do this because we're 800 engineers, and we hired 200 since January 1st. And down in Copley, we're 2,000 people total. So we're basically as enterprise gets. But we kind of act like a lot of small startups all under the same building. Because of this, I had experiences at a startup. I had experiences at very monolithic enterprises. So it was real interesting, the position I'm in now, and just kind of talk about, how it works, what doesn't, physical barriers, and so forth. So the title is Collaboration with 2,000 People. Kind of why does, I really like these meta talks. There's the code talks, and then there's the personality talks, the psychological talks. I really enjoy this because it is a complex system, and you need information to flow through the system. So what's kind of the fine balance, we call it, between shouting and whispering. So you have 2,000 people. Do you email everybody when you're doing a major change? Do you whisper to certain groups and let it propagate out? So there are lessons to be learned. I'm sure some of us with larger groups, we've kind of not wanted to shout to everybody at the same time, because obviously if it goes wrong, more people know about it going wrong. And kind of how does that relate to what a startup would do compared to what an enterprise would do, traditional, and how does it relate to more of what these modern enterprises are kind of embracing from the lessons learned? So ideally we found 4 barriers. There's the physical barrier that's stopping collaboration, literally walls, floors, obstructions between you and the person that you're trying to communicate to. There's the time barrier, and the time barrier could be different shifts. How many of you are running a 24/7 ops shift? How many have folks in different countries or different time zones? So there's your time barrier there. How many people deal with the absence of time, where there's not enough hours in the day to get your tickets done? You have that continuous queue of tickets. There's the communication barrier, phone, chat, language, especially if you're a global company and you're handing off to, UK is handing off to you, you're handing off to Asia, you're handing off to India. So we kind of start in the beginning, and I know everybody hates the word hack because it's been used probably for a decade now in the wrong terms, but we like to say hack your environment. So first, how do you hack your physical environment? How do you open up collaboration in that means? Literally knock down walls. Thank you for hosting this here, because this is the perfect example of knocking down your walls in this type of situation. How many of you work at offices that have kind of the eye-level cubes? And, how does that make you feel? Does it feel similar to New York City, where it's that concrete canyon of a bit of induced stress, a bit of flow, where something of this nature feels like a restaurant? You're naturally more calm, you're naturally more productive. So open floor plans, a lot of people, or actually not a lot, some will be against it, especially the introverts in the crowd. It does kind of bring a nervousness to it, but traditionally most personalities will enjoy more of an open state like this. But at Wayfair in particular, we are pretty much like this. You can see wall-to-wall desks and everybody sitting. How do you get work done? How, when you're coding, do you literally say, nobody bother me, even though you can all look me in the eyes? We do follow the normal headphone rule. If you see headphones in, don't talk to that person whatsoever. But one of the big things is everybody has a laptop. There's no desktops. I can pick up my laptop and go to designated quiet areas and get my work done through Wi-Fi, through VPN. It allows me both the collaboration that an open space gives, but at the same time, I can walk away and get what I have to get done, and people will leave me alone during those times. Basically, you ask the question, what is stopping, say, Joe, for example. My friend Joe, what is stopping you from communicating with me physically? If you're sitting there and I'm sitting right here, we have this giant wall in front of us. So I took a 3D art class back in college, and one of the art things that we had to do was control people, control flow with art. Everyone's been to the city where you saw those big paintings on the ground. Naturally, you don't want to step on that painting. That's a fake barrier. That's a fake physical barrier. That's literally not stopping you from me from walking to you, but you have this kind of induced route that you're leading human beings around. Office design, I think, doesn't really take that into consideration. A lot of it is fire code, obviously, but you do want to pack a lot of people into a single space. But are you affecting your communication in your building right now just by the way it was designed, or where you're putting a table, where you're putting the lunchroom? The final thing for physical is there's a thing in physics called volumetric rate. It's how much stuff you can shove through a pipe at any one given time. So traffic's a good example. You go from 4 lanes to 2 lanes, and naturally you slow down your flow or rate. It's very similar to kind of the hallways in your office. The tighter the spanses, the less, I guess, effective communication you'll get from collaboration compared to having these big walls, and I'll send somebody a chat and say, I'm having a problem. There's the instant collaboration amongst me. There's no physical barrier there. So now your time barrier, it kind of breaks up into 2 parts. You have your physical time that you can control, what you work on, who you turn away. Then you have the time you can't control, the ticking of the clock. So what we've done at previous jobs, especially for folks with that follow the sun method, is if you are a developer in the UK, you deploy during UK hours and operations during UK times. You can't deploy in Boston and hand it over to the India office to support that. Something Google does is if you're a developer and you have a deployment, you monitor and maintain that deployment the first 6 months to guarantee that it's ready to hand off to the ops team. I really like that practice. It's hard to get in the place because it will slow down flow if you don't have a proper continuous integration going or a nice fast deployment. So it's a hit or miss, but I guess back to the time barrier, if you're doing fast changes, which is the big theme with DevOps, you will better control your time and break down that barrier. So then we go to the time that you can control. You cannot measure your time if you cannot control it. Actually, did I say that right? No. If you cannot measure your time, you cannot control it. The rule we do at Wayfair, all requests are a ticket. There's no drive-bys whatsoever. No favors, no going to managers. It's a hard practice at first, but something a very good manager of mine did years ago said, measure your time for 1 week and then show it to me, and you will be shocked at how many favors that you're doing for friends. Just because, A, they helped you in the past, you owe them, but at the same time, that adds up and that affects other projects, especially business projects that you're assigned. And I lost my slide. How am I on time? Good?
Yeah.
Perfect. So, hack your communication. Slack's huge. ChatOps is huge. I've been doing this for about 15 years. I moisturize, that's why I look young. But I remember back in the day, you know, we almost wish, I'm like, wow, do you remember the AOL chat rooms? I wish we had something like this for work, just because I'm sick of emailing everybody. So that communication of just Slack and Skype for Business, or even the Skype meeting rooms, you know, for like, you know, across nation meetings, like that's a huge thing to break down the barrier, but there's other barriers. One of them for us was basically the language barrier. I had folks that I was managing in Chennai, and woken up in the middle of the night, they're fine, but if we're on the phone talking, they understand English, but they have a very thick accent, and when I get kind of frustrated about stuff, my New Jersey accent comes out. So I'd imagine the same thing happens to them, where they're thinking, I can't understand this guy's going a million miles an hour. So we decided to kind of hack that, typing only, you know, and through these chat up, like especially Slack, like, you know, it's easy for him in the middle of the night to type in plain English to me to reply and not waste any time whatsoever in that barrier. And big thing that we do at Wayfair is, everybody knows what a Kanban board is. We display them literally on every group. So if you walk by my team and you're wondering where your ticket is, where your project is, you don't have to talk to anybody. You just look at the damn board. Every team does that. So that kind of hacks your communication, because you're cutting off that person from bothering somebody, taking them away from that moment, and being able to see what they need to see right away. You can even digitally display your Kanban boards with your Jira, for example. So display your work. Make your work as transparent as possible. You will naturally answer questions that are going to come your way anyways. The military does something very familiar that, if anybody here's a project manager, have you ever managed a project and had to manage 20 people with that? Military platoons will follow something called assigned headquarters. So if they're given a mission, you're a mission leader, you're given so many soldiers to come about that. If they decide that you need more resources, you'll hit a cap and they'll assign a second leader and build the pyramid up. That way, say a lieutenant colonel, for example, who's in charge of 1,000 people, he's literally 4 people away from every single soldier. So one of the practices that we enjoy doing, especially for project management, is if you get that big of a team, you have 2 project managers on that and assign them a single leader, just to kind of induce the flow of communication so that one project manager isn't completely burdened with answering the 20 people and scheduling 20 people. And finally, if I can read this. So, this is the tricky one. Originally the slide said hack humans, but then I crossed it off and I put persuade humans. Humans, everybody has that kind of human constraint, and it's kind of the hardest thing to fix for collaboration, because there's a behavior you have to change. So I've kind of found that there's never such thing as a true skeptic. Whenever you're trying to change behavior, you're usually going against somebody that has a belief system that's backed up by experience. So for you to go in and you probably are right with what you're trying to do, you're trying to change something that they physically in their mind have proof that works the way that they expect it to work. So the best way to do that is what I like to call the inception method, where you start planting very small ideas weeks in advance. Have lunch. The very small thing of, oh, what if we do this? Oh, eventually, oh, maybe we can do this. For example, we're trying to DevOps our Windows environment, and that's my main goal at Wayfair, is to kind of DevOps-size every single Windows server. That's a hard culture to beat, because you have system administrators with 20 years with the GUI under their belt. To tell them that when Nano Server comes out and we're using it, there's no GUI, and they have to, follow the Linux method of everything, and everything's by code. To kind of shock and awe them with that and say, give a presentation, here's what you're doing in 6 months, prepare, that's not going to happen. So we kind of start small, and I'll have little small ideas of, wow, look at this, they're not going to support this anymore, they're going to be doing this. And eventually, if you do it early enough, I found that they come back around and tell me the same ideas that I told them weeks ago. And I'm like, perfect. I'm letting the idea flow down, and you're almost convinced that it was your idea. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you very much.